Hello to you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my journey through The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan and the rest of the Wheel of Time series as I go through it. In these videos that I'm creating, I am reflecting back on my notes that I've taken in my trusty notebook, where I, at the end of every chapter, stop and write down a page of thoughts about what I'm thinking and feeling and noticing. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, and I love that about the journey. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my experience reading chapter 27 to 33. We've entered into the second half of The Eye of the World now, so I'm noticing that I'm picking up on more things. I'm starting to piece together what's going on in this novel in particular, if not getting clues as to where the rest of the series might be going. I think it's a lot to ask to be doing that in the first book of such a long series. But I'm starting to pick up some threads and some trends in Robert Jordan's writing. And I'm really enjoying the time that I'm taking to read it. I never read this slowly, so it's a strange experience, but I'm definitely enjoying it. And I'm hoping you're enjoying these videos as well. Make sure if you are, comment below, like, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and join in the conversation, because I really do enjoy hearing what you're thinking. And I'd love to know if you can remember, if you've finished reading The Wheel of Time, can you remember what it was like the first time you read this and how you felt about it? And if you're reading it for the first time, are you noticing the same things as me? So yeah, join in and have a chat with me down in the comments, because I really love it. So let's start with chapter 27, Shelter from the Storm. I half expected Aram to leave with them, so Perrin and Gwen in this chapter. He may still yet follow them. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, because I think that seems to be what he would like to do, and I don't think Gwen would object at this stage. The Dark One, the Dark Lord, has obviously found Perrin's dreams now. So the wolves were doing something and now they're not. It was like he'd been hidden, but obviously not quite fully by the wolves. It sounds like if he accepts his wolf affinity, the wolves will actually be able to help him do more. So I think that could be very interesting to see how that plays out, and with like how that impacts Perrin's growth and Perrin's journey as he goes through. Ilias gave Gwen advice on being a woman. Gwen gets a lot of advice, but is she learning to be herself yet? Is she actually taking any of these things on? I think that's what, when Gwen separated from the rest of the group, except for Perrin, I was really excited, and I know I mentioned this, I think I mentioned this. I'm really excited for Gwen to have some growth that's not contingent on Moraine or Nynaeve. So I'm hoping that Ilias' advice here impacts her in some way, and she starts taking it on board and forming her own opinion, her own personality. I'm sure she's got it, but we're just not seeing it yet. The Tinkers are heading to a steading, which according to the glossary, because sometimes I do check in with the glossary to see, it's a safe place. So hopefully the Tinkers will not be attacked, because I don't want anything to happen to them. I just think that they're beautiful. They definitely have more stories to tell, and I believe that we will definitely see them again. I'd be very surprised if we do not see these characters again. And I fully expect them to have some part to play in the story, even if it's a minor part. I really do expect to see them again. Now, the scene with the women dancing for Perrin, I think this is just absolutely incredible and would be so amusing to watch. Imagine being Perrin's friends watching this. I know they're not there, but imagine, I just think it would be really quite funny watching how uncomfortable he is. Especially because he begins off uncomfortable and he just gets even more so, and the women almost relish that. I really don't think that they're oblivious to the fact that he's uncomfortable, and I think they take great pride in being able to make him uncomfortable. Chapter 28, Footprints in Air. Seeing things from Nynaeve's perspective is really great. She cares about the 4 villagers, like a lot. But how much of that is because she doesn't want to fail? It's really difficult to sort of separate how she just doesn't want to fail because of all the expectations around her and not wanting to be for people to think that she can't handle her position as wisdom, and how much of that is because she really cares about them. It's really hard to tell at this stage. I think that there's probably a bit of both. It would be hard not to care about them, but I do think that there's a little bit of her not wanting her pride to be injured by them disappearing and not arriving home safely. It doesn't bode well for anywhere the boys stop that Whitebridge has been attacked that way. How much was the Fade that did the damage, and how much was because of Galb's stories? I do wonder how much of an impact Galb, the sailor, had impacting what was going on. It looks like Captain Domin got away though, so we may yet see him again, and I really hope we do. The question remains about Tom. Is he on the boat or following the boys, or did he actually die? And if he survived, how did he survive? Because I don't know that we've really seen enough of fighting skills on Tom's behalf for him to have actually stood up against a Fade and survived. But maybe he's a master swordsman and we just don't know it yet. The Aes Sedai are obviously quite arrogant. Otherwise, Moraine would spend more time explaining things. Imagine how much trouble she would have saved if she had actually spoken to the villagers about things. But there is definitely this arrogance, and whether that is Moraine or whether that is all Aes Sedai, I think only time will tell, as I'm assuming I will meet other Aes Sedai in future books or later in this one. And hopefully they find Perrin and Egwene before too much trouble befalls them. It will be interesting to see how Moraine and Lan respond to Ilias when they meet up. I think there's definitely more going on there, and I think I'd really love to see Moraine, how she interacts with him and how Lan interacts with him as well, or whether they just don't have anything or any thoughts or any opinions about him. I think it could be very interesting to see. Chapter 29, Eyes Without Pity. Oh, that is such a cool chapter title. Eyes Without Pity. Such imagery. The raven chase was a little terrifying. There's something about birds. I think ravens, when I first saw a raven and how big it was at the Tower of London, I was really surprised. I kind of thought that ravens and crows were interchangeable, but seeing a raven up close, I can imagine how terrifying that would be to have so many of them. And I think that could be such an epic scene to watch. And I hope that any time this is seen on screen, it captures that terror, that visceral horror and terror that these characters would be feeling in the moment. They are really lucky that Ilias is with them, or Egwene definitely would be dead. Maybe Perrin too, or at least Perrin would be captured. But I really do think without Ilias, Egwene would be dead. What an absolutely incredible horse Bela is. She's still sticking with them despite the danger, and it's being like, it's showing this steadfastness and reliability that a lot of the other characters don't have. So I'm absolutely loving Bela. The stories of Arthur Hawkwing are definitely based on the King Arthur legends. Is that the kind of thing Wheel of Time is about? Like history repeating itself? Like with Perrin and the wolves and Mat's battle cry. So is this sort of taking that idea that Arthur comes back? So at the end of the Arthur legend, Arthur goes to the island to come back when the world needs him again. And I feel that that's definitely what seems to be going here with Hawkwing. What a cool name. I like that. Now, I absolutely love Gwen. I actually am going to find that I want to watch more of her character growth because I feel like she's got a lot of growing to do, but in a very different way to what the boys are experiencing. But I do want to know how Gwen can be so okay with the Aes Sedai magic, but struggle so much with Ilias and Perrin's magic, or their affinity with wolves, or I'm like some whatever kind of magic it is. Is it because it is so unknown, something she's never even heard of, and there's that sense of the familiar with the Aes Sedai magic, even if people were uncomfortable with it? Is it because she has access to it, or is there something else going on? Because I do think that it doesn't sit right with me that Gwen is still struggling so much with Perrin's magic. Not that I'd expect, given Perrin struggling with it, I wouldn't expect her to just accept it, but I would expect her to be a little bit better about it. Ilias actually explains what's going on to these two, so that's really refreshing compared to Moraine withholding information and only telling them what she thinks that they need to know. Ilias is all about setting these two up to succeed as best as he can. So he gives them as much information as he is able to. He's holding back something though, and I suppose what he's holding back is linked with his backstory, I'd guess. He's holding something back. And how does he know so much about King Arthur? And where does he come from? Especially considering he avoids people. I think that there's so many inconsistencies with Ilias. But in comparison to Moraine and Land, Ilias tells Gwen and Perrin so much because it's almost like he doesn't assume that he will be with them all the time. He wants them to succeed, even if he's not there to help them succeed. Whereas Moraine and Land to that lesser extent, but Moraine, it's like they don't need to worry because they've got her and she's got it covered, and we see how well that turned out, don't we? But there's definitely a bit of comparison that can be done between Ilias and Moraine and how they're handling having two borderline incompetent villagers, although I suppose Perrin is a little bit more competent in this situation than maybe Rand and Matt might be. Chapter 30, Children of Shadow. Is Bornhald placing Perrin in some kind of thrall, or is there something else going on? Now, it was a while ago since I've read this book, so I don't know whether I'd still feel that same way about what was going on, but because I can't exactly remember what I'm talking about in that sense. But obviously there's something's going on with Perrin in this scene, and he's not acting quite right. It's not really surprising that they were caught. Maybe if Ilias had the chance to warn them who was coming, they could have got further away or escaped, but because they didn't get that warning, they weren't able to do that. But now there is hope, as Moraine is searching for them as opposed to the others. But Perrin no longer has his coin. It depends then on how close they were before he lost it. So Moraine and Lan and Nynaeve could have been quite close, or could have a general idea of where they are. But if they've moved too far from that last location, it'll be a lot harder for them to be found. And Ilias said he'd find them, but will he? There's definitely more to his story, so surely Perrin is going to need him a little bit longer. There's more that Perrin needs to learn about his wolf affinity and what that means, and it seems that Ilias is the best, if not only person to help him work that out, other than maybe the wolves themselves. At least Gwen knew to follow Perrin's story. It would not have boded well if they were caught out in a lie. So Gwen, I suppose one good thing that we're finding out about her in this situation is she's been quick to follow Perrin's lead in different situations. Not all the time. It was a little bit different when she was around the Tinkers, but she is not the kind of person that just sort of goes off on her own tangent at this stage. She's a team player. I think that's what I'm trying to say. She understands, she's quick to understand, maybe more so than Rand and Matt. And Perrin's showing in this case that he can think on his feet, and he's not as slow-witted as maybe he comes across through other characters' eyes. Chapter 31, Play for Your Supper. Matt's signs from Min are interesting. I think Min's really cool. I'd like to see her again. But Matt's signs, an eagle, which I'm assuming is linked to his battle cry, and a ruby dagger. I think Mordeth's treasure is feeding his paranoia in some way. I hope Moiraine or someone else is able to help break whatever connection there is between Matt and this dagger, and the connection then that it gives to Mordeth and the city, and like the ruined city and all of those kind of things, because I think that this is going to be problematic. Now, Rand must be pretty handsome to have attracted Elsa's attention and her mother's worry. Will she appear again, or is that it for this little side interlude kind of thing? If she follows him, that really wouldn't be a good thing at all. I do think that if if she decided to follow Rand, it would put a lot of pressure on Rand to look after her and look out for her. And I really don't think that would be a great thing at all. So hopefully she stays put and her parents are able to sort of bring her back into line. I'm glad they're stopping in inns now, so farms won't be in quite so much danger. I do worry every time that they stop somewhere now that something is going to happen to the people who've helped them. Rand would really like nothing better than to go home. Poor thing. I wonder if he'll ever get there again. At this stage, I wouldn't be surprised if Rand never makes it back to the Two Rivers. And I think that would be a real shame, because you can see that that's all he wants. He wants to just go home. And then I also think that maybe he needs to go home to realise that he can't be there, or that he's grown beyond it. Not necessarily for danger's sake, but just even leaving the village and leaving everything he'd known and going and seeing more. I hope that it's sort of introduced new questions and new desires into Rand's life, and maybe he will start appreciating the opportunities. No matter how much danger there is, maybe he'll start appreciating them and realise that going home isn't the answer. A brief mention suggests that someone like Peddler Fane may still be following them, but it could have been wishful thinking that Tom was following. The two boys are having to find their own way. It's a bit of character growth here, good and bad. And Matt's definitely going crazy in some way, shape or form. Something is going on with Matt, and it is frustrating to say the least, but I'm going to sit back and say that no matter how much I don't like Matt, I don't think what's going on is his fault. I really do think it's some connection to the dagger at this stage, and taking treasure from Mordeth's lair. I've got to say, can't stand Matt still, but at least this, I can blame him for taking the treasure in the first place, but I can't blame him then for not knowing why, or not knowing that this is the effect that it would have on him. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a free pass for his behaviour right now. Not much, but a little bit. Chapter 32, 4 Kings in Shadow. So this is the first confirmed encounter with a dark friend. I wouldn't say that they haven't had other ones, but it's also Rand's first time connecting with the source that we can identify, if Moraine's explanation to Nynaeve is the same for men. Something happened when he's in great need, and he obviously has some kind of connection with lightning, just like the dragon. I don't know if all Aes Sedai have that same connection with lightning, or if that's something that only some of them do. I can imagine that each Aes Sedai has different things that they can do, but Moiraine used lightning, didn't she? Well, she's got fire, lightning. Moraine used something back in the Two Rivers. So maybe they can all access lightning in some way, or maybe they just all have different powers in different ways. Got a lot of questions about the Aes Sedai. I'm sure that as I keep reading, that will get answered. Matt still really annoys me. He's selfish, not thinking beyond what he wants right now. They could have gotten away much quicker if he had actually listened to Rand about the danger. And his inability to hide his feelings, example, staring suspiciously at people, is going to constantly attract the wrong attention. Matt is seriously the worst. As I said, I really do think this is connected to the dagger, but some of it is personality. And he was doing these kind of things beforehand anyway, and now it's just making it worse. So whatever this stuff that's going on with him is, I think it's heightening things that are already there. It's not creating new behavior. It's just heightening it. And so Matt's still the worst, and I stand by that. And the final chapter for today is chapter 33, The Dark Waits. So we have a different style of writing here, jumping forward and then going back to fill in the gaps. And I thought that was different. Rand definitely has that same sickness Moraine described to Nynaeve, and to prove that she has access to the source. Another dark friend or two, neither are very scary. More what it means for, it's more scary about what it means for Matt and Rand and Perrin and the others to a lesser extent. It's a reminder that it can literally be anyone who is a dark friend. They cannot trust anyone, and I think that's probably a really important reminder at this stage. Matt has had to step up and actually be responsible, and I think that was a really interesting decision, really important to see that Matt has the ability to do that, even if he grumbles a little bit. Hopefully he'll learn and grow from the situation, and we'll start to see more of this side of Matt that shows that he is capable of stepping up when he needs to. They're both being really stupid though, going back to the inn after being discovered in one. So a new inn, I guess, but being discovered in one inn and going to another one, it's that sort of lack of knowledge of how to hide yourself. Patterns are really easily traceable, and they're creating a pattern of where they're staying. And Hyam Kinch, the farmer, he better not end up dead. He seems like he actually cares, and I love that. And I just think that that's just pure. It's pure. Like it's absolutely lovely to see someone in such a dark world care so much about other people and about how they're going. So there we go. That is my thoughts, reflections, questions, and random musings on chapters 27 to 33 of The Eye of the World. Keep tuning in, keep following along, subscribe, comment, like, all those kind of things to see how the rest of my journey goes. And join in on the conversation down below, because in the comments, I'd really love to hear what you noticed. Did you notice something that I didn't? I actually think it is absolutely fascinating how we all read books in different ways. And as we're all reading it, I might pick up or focus in or like really pay attention to what's happening in one specific instance, but you might be paying attention to something in a completely different way. And I think that just adds to the experience of each of us reading the book individually. So I may be having one journey focusing through The Eye of the World, like looking through my eyes, but if you join in the comments, you'll be able to point out things that maybe I've missed, or things that maybe I've noticed something that you missed, and I'd love to know that too. I'd love to sit there and go, oh, that's really cool. It's always really, really wonderful to be able to have conversations with people, so definitely join in. And I will be back again with another video later in the week.